Greetings and welcome to the Halloween edition of the Sliders Review. And I'm here today to talk to you about my thoughts on the 2008 The Eye movie. I never understood why it's just called The Eye and not The Eyes, because she gets two eyes. But you know, it's a Japanese remake and they didn't put no S at the end of that. Well, at least I don't think they did. I don't speak Japanese. I can't even pronounce the Japanese pronunciation of it. I don't know what the other part is, but yeah. So because this is an American remake of a Japanese horror movie, most likely it's not going to do well. And in fact, it didn't. It seems like the only American Japanese remake to only do well is The Ring and maybe The Grudge. Even though I didn't like The Grudge, but it still did good. Every other remake just doesn't do well. It just doesn't. Even The Grudge and The Ring, like sequels, don't do good. So yes, in 2008, this was around the time that American Hollywood, was constantly remaking Asian horror movies. And I'm so glad they stopped because they're not very good. I've never seen the original to compare, but I've seen like trailers and clips, and they're pretty cool. Now, this movie stars Jessica Alba. I love Jessica Alba. And Chloe Grace Moretz, she's playing a cancer patient. And also Parker Posey is in this, and she does a pretty good job as well, along with some other people who I've seen before but don't remember their names. Now, one problem I have with this movie is Jessica Alba plays a white woman. Why? She's Mexican. Why couldn't they just write her as a Mexican? I don't get it. This is like the second time that I know of where she played a white girl. Like, remember those Fantastic Four movies? I don't get it. Like, why can't they just write her as a Mexican person? Why? I don't understand that. You know how cool that would have been? Like, oh, look, a Mexican lead in a horror movie. How rare is that in Hollywood? Very rare. But no, she's just a Mexican playing a white girl and everything. And the person who wrote this, whose name I can't even pronounce, sounds Hispanic. Or maybe Italian, but it sounds a little Hispanic as well. So if the person is Hispanic, why the heck couldn't they write that for her? Now, this movie was directed by two people I've never heard of. I don't like the idea of a movie being directed by two people. Yes, technically that's all movies. You have your principal director, and then you have another person who does like second unit and stuff. But for the most part, it's always that main person. But here you got two. That always worries me because it's just kind of like, okay, one person's good at one thing and the other is good at another. So why can't you just like hire somebody that's good at both? However, the only time I do like when there's two directors is that they gotta be related in some way. Either like siblings or they're married or something. Normally then they be on the same wavelength on directing, because most of the time when it's like more than one director and it's somebody who's not used to working with that person, they don't always tend to do a good job. And so, yes, this movie did not do very well at the box office. This is my second time watching this movie. Years ago, I watched it. I did not like it. I rewatched it again. I still don't like it. And the problem is, see, when it comes to this, is the original is made by I'm gonna say the American way, the Payne brothers, or it might be Pawn brothers, but I'm gonna say the American way, Payne. And so the problem I'm having with Japanese remakes or American remakes of Japanese properties is they tend to forget the essence of what made it so memorable, what made it so special. Because see, in this movie, you have your generic jump scares. And they're just generic and they don't do nothing for you. They're very unoriginal. And yes, this does sometimes do a beat by beat of like the original movie, which is cool. And I've never seen the original movie. I just now, for the first time in my life, watched the trailer and a side-by-side comparison. And I'm just like, there are things that the original movie did that was way cooler. And the reason for that is that one thing I've noticed about Japanese horror movies is that they take their time to build up your fear before they scare you. This is something American movies used to do, especially in slashers, but every once in a while they want to rev things up. For some reason, American movies want to go at a fast pace. And you can't always do that when it comes to horror. You have to take everything in before you be scared. Building up your fear is very vital, and that's something this remake just doesn't do very well, because when it's trying to build your fear, it does it at a high speed pace. I like to think of Japanese horror movies from the clips and trailers that I've seen. It's like taking a magic paintbrush, and as you're painting on your canvas, your painting is slowly coming to life and you're taking everything in. Whereas in the American ones, like I said before, they tend to rush things. And when you rush stuff, your eyes can't take things in. It can't build up your anxiety. It cannot build up your fear level. And that is a main problem when it comes to that of this movie. Now, I like the lighting in the American movie better than the lighting in the Japanese one. And the Japanese one is kind of dull. In the American one, it's your typical dark lighting with kind of like a greenish blue filter kind of. And it tries to get that horror movie-esque feel. So I like that. I'm used to that. So why not? You know what I'm saying? And like, so the one major problem, like I said, I had before, it doesn't build up your fear level as good as it should. Another problem I'm having is when they do try to do the jump scares and all this other stuff, the CGI is not always that good. It looks very digital. It looks very rushed. Whatever that shadow man is looks completely like crap. There's that one scene with the ladies at the diner and she's scaring the crap out of the main character, and then she rushes at her. It's a lot more frightening in like the Japanese one. There's the elevator scene where, like, you know, the guy is like floating towards her in the Japanese one, and his feet kind of stumbles where it kind of hits the ground and it's still levitating. Whereas in the American one, it's completely just levitating very cleanly. And I like the Japanese one better because it gives that weird, like, you know, stab minted feel when it's floating. And, you know, in the Japanese one, it has that stillness. And that's something that the American movie just needs, you know. It needs that eye-catching, slow stillness, like take it in frame by frame, like feel to it, you know what I'm saying, before you get to like the jump scare. And that's just something the American movie just does not do. Now, in terms of acting, this movie's been criticized for a lot. It's even been criticized for the acting. They said there's like some wooden acting. Jessica Alba got like a Razzie nominated for this. She also won an actual award for something else. I think it was like Teen Choice, or it was something. I can't remember what it was. And like it won for best poster. I didn't even think that was a category. Now, when it comes to that of the recurring characters who also star in this movie, they do a pretty good job, but there tends to be some blandness or staleness or woodenness to their performance. Mostly the specialist eye doctor dude, who is the love interest of Sydney, Jessica Alba's character. Like, I've seen him in other stuff before, and it's just, he always has kind of this wooden performance and stuff. And it doesn't help that he's in the second half of the movie and some sort of like love interest type person. Parker Posey, the sister, she does an okay job, but she's barely there. You know, it's funny. She's known as like the queen of the indies and everything. And every time she tries to break out into like a big like blockbustery type movie, it always bombs. Like Blade Trinity, Superman Returns, um Scream 3, which really didn't bomb, but it's one of the least favorite and everything. And it's just like, she just don't know how to pick them. Now, Chloe Grace Moretz, she did a phenomenal job. Like, she really sold it as like a patient, a cancer patient. And she was just a little girl in this and everything, but she was probably the best actress in the entirety of the movie. Now, as for Jessica Alba herself, I've said before when I reviewed Dark Angel, I like Jessica Alba, I like some of the stuff I've seen her in, but this movie was not one of them. Here's my thing about Jessica Alba. She can act, but what I've started to notice with a lot of her acting roles that I've seen, she tends to play the same type of character. A headstrong, tough person. Here, not so much. Here, she is trying to do something different and show that she has range. Now, the only things I've ever really seen her in is like, the Fantastic Four movies and Dark Angel. And, in Dark Angel, she was tough as nails and everything. Sarcastic, smart mouth, And in Fantastic Four, she was smart and headstrong. Those tend to be the type of roles that she tends to take. And so for the most part, like, I've never seen her in horror. And I've never seen her really be vulnerable before. There was one scene in Dark Angel where she had to be vulnerable, and she did a pretty good job because she had a better director to direct her in that. And so she's stepping out of her lane, and it shows and everything. Like when she does take on projects, she acts to that of her strengths. And since this is something now new to her and she's trying to act like differently, she didn't hit the ball out the park with this. You can see, she struggled with this and everything, which is quite a shame. Because like I told you before, when I've seen her in other roles, you don't see her scared. You don't see her as a damsel in distress type thing, and you don't see her freaking out that much. Because she likes to take on these very strong, domineering, headstrong type characters and stuff, because that's who she is in real life. She's nice and she's strong-willed. And she's very prideful. And because Jensen Ackles ratted her out, we know she has a bit of a temper. and an attitude and everything. Because apparently she treated him like crap during the second season of Dark Angel. He said mostly because she was going through a lot of stuff, like, a relationship, and here comes this new guy, and she's kind of like, oh, ain't no pretty boy gonna come in here and like steal the show and like all this other stuff from what her and the cast built, you know what I'm saying? And so, like, I like her as an actress, but here in this role, she didn't quite do it for me. Now, it's a little iffy at times. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. She prepped for this role to play a blind woman, how to play like a violin, how to act like a blind person, what they do on a regular day. That she did very well. And I love the fact that she prepped for that. It shows the dedication to it. When, because Ben Affleck did the same thing for the Daredevil movie. And I learned some things while watching, the Daredevil movie and this one when it comes to blind people. Because, hey, you never know if you might go blind. And so, the whole finger in the cup when pouring your drink, see how much you want in there and stuff like that. You pick up on stuff like that. And she did it, like I said, very, very well. My only complaint about her playing a blind person is that I don't like when Hollywood does the whole grayish eye thing to show that somebody's blind. If it's like a superhero thing or a supernatural paranormal type thing, that's fine. And even though technically this is like paranormal, not so much with her. So, and then also her eyes, her blind eyes, are not the result of paranormal activity. So, I wish they would have just gave her regular looking eyes instead of going that Hollywood route. Now, normally, like when she did the blind thing, normally when you see stars who are not blind act, they keep their head in one position or they kind of look upward, so they don't look directly nowhere at nobody or like the camera. And it's almost like when they're talking, their head is drifting away. I wish she would have gave a little bit more of that, you know what I'm saying? Because I've met a blind person before. Now he didn't act with his head all up and drifting away. His head was straight, like center. He was energetic and everything. I had to help him cross the street. But then when I was younger, I was watching Barney and Friends, and they had a blind girl on there, like a teenager or a young adult. I can't remember. And she did the whole head up thing, kind of drifting type thing. So, different blind people act different ways, and there's no way to act like as one specific type blind person. But, when you're used to seeing that on screen, you kind of wish everybody would kind of act that way. You know what I'm saying? With the kind of glazy over like expression and stuff like that. But you never really see her without her glasses, so she don't really get to do that. But like I said before, when she did the blind stuff, it was pretty cool. And when she got her eyesight, that was also pretty cool with her in the mirror, like, smiling and acting silly. It was fun seeing her do that. I've never seen her do that. I mean, I've seen her smile in pictures, but that's about it. But then it's like, once you get all to like, the uneasiness of like her seeing like dead people and shadow figures and her freaking out, that's where she stumbles and everything, because she didn't really sell that performance very well. It could be a lack of not playing that type of character, or it could just be because her face really doesn't emote. One thing I've noticed about her and other actresses who have looked similar, now she is drop dead gorgeous. She has not aged in 22 years. She looks exactly the way she did in season 2 of Dark Angel, when her face slimmed down a little bit. She literally has not aged, and I'm not even joking. You don't see no wrinkles on her. And so like, one thing I've always noticed about her is she has what I like to call natural Botox face. Now, no, I am not saying she had work done on her face. I am not saying that at all. I'm saying she has that natural look to it. She has the big eyes, the big lips, the big cheeks. And because of that, most people with like bigger features in their faces don't tend to move. They kind of just stay stuck. And so that's one of the problems when she's trying to act, because she doesn't have much expression, because her face generally doesn't move unless she's copying attitude with you and stuff. And that's the only time her face really ever moves, because she's really selling that with the eyebrow shift and the eye shift and stuff like that. And so I just wish she would have gave sold her performance of being like scared and freaked out just a bit better. You know what I'm saying? And stuff that really would have helped sell the movie. But then it would have been hard to sell it anyway, because like I said before, the special effects, which is kind of blah, and everything happens at a very fast pace. And so the movie is about this blind woman who got cornea transplants. And so when she's able to see, all of a sudden when she looks at certain people, they look a little weird. They'll be dead or zombified looking kind of way. Or they'll walk right through her and she'll see them. Then she'll go a few feet over and see that same person dead on the road. This is unexplained, and she doesn't know what the heck is happening. We, the audience, also don't know what's happening either, but somehow she's able to see dead people through the eyes of her donor. Now, here's the problem with that. You can get away with not explaining too much in a movie if it's like a foreign movie and stuff. But when you adapt it into an American movie, you gotta take certain liberties. Certain things just can't be beat by beat. You gotta explain some things. And not just at the end when, the movie decides to explain things in the original. This is something Power Rangers did very well. When they started to adapt Super Sentai, they only adapted the fight scenes, but then everything else with the civilian stuff was all American, so that it could translate better for like Americans. Sailor Moon tried this. They both succeeded and failed because when the Deke did Sailor Moon in the 90s, they changed a lot of stuff to make it more comfortable for Americans, and it worked, and I like that. And then years later, people saw either the original Japanese version or they saw the Viz version, the Viz, as a Viz version, where they just kept the Japanese stuff in there, but then they still had American voices. And it took a while for people to get used to that because, now they're driving on different sides of the road, they have different names and stuff like that. Death Note did a terrible job of adapting like a Japanese property to America because what works over there don't always work over here. And so that's kind of the case here a little bit. So you don't know why all this stuff is going on with her. She's freaking out. People are terrifying her. And it's to the point where she just no longer wants to see and will darken out like, her room by taking out all the lights. When she tells her sister thinks she's crazy. When she tells the specialist, he thinks she's crazy and he won't even tell her who the donor is. And the way he acts makes it seem like he's sinister and there's something more to it, but there's not. It's just how the actor acts and everything. So then he finally decides he's going to tell her who the donor is and all this other stuff. Because I think she looked it up and stuff. And it turns out to be a Mexican woman. Because what's so freaky is that this is the part that's also not really explained too well. The little cancer girl took a picture with her before she died. And so her mom wanted her to have that picture. So she asked her sister, who's this person in the picture? And she's all like, it's you. And she's all like, no, it's not. And she's all like, so then she looks at it and it looks just like her. So then she goes into like the mirror and it's a completely different woman's face, some Mexican lady. And so this is the part, like, it's just not really explained that well. And it's because this is what happened in the Japanese movie. And I wish they would have explained that well, because it doesn't make no sense. Because us, the viewer, we can see it's clearly her in the picture. But then when she looks into the mirror, it's a completely different woman. So then that made me think, okay, is this dead woman taking over her mind too? And took over her body or what? No, it's just when she looks in the mirror, she sees a different person now. For that one time and that one time only. So after telling the doctor, specialist, and all this and that, he's all like, oh, she's a woman from Mexico. We got to drive 15 hours to go see her. And no, 15 hours to Mexico to find some answers. Now, this is the part where I have a lot of irritation concern. So they made Jessica Alba into a white woman. But the woman who gave her her eyes happened to be Mexican from Mexico. Why not just make Jessica Alba Mexican? So they deduce if going to Mexico, they'll be able to solve this mystery and everything by driving 15 hours there. How did they deduce that? How would they know they will find the answers? So they go there and this is what's even more funnier. The kids there are speaking Spanish. The specialist dude who's white knows how to speak Spanish. But Jessica Alba's character, Sydney, does not. Oh, speaking of which, this whole Sydney thing, they named her Sydney in the movie, and in the beginning of the movie, you hear one of the music theme songs from the Scream movie. Why? There's no connection to this. Anyway, so Jessica Alba plays a white woman who can't speak Spanish and cannot read Spanish, but the white dude who's the specialist can. That's just weird. Why not just make her Mexican? Why make her white? So then they go into the home, and the dead lady's mother happens to be there, and the dead lady mother just happens to speak English. Isn't that convenient that she speaks English? But why is Jessica Alba playing a white woman? I don't get it. I just don't. Because Parker Posey's white and plays her mom. Not mom. I'm getting messed up. Sister. And then her aunt is in the movie, and her aunt looks kind of Jewish or Italian. You can't make this stuff up in Hollywood. Like, you really can't. And then it gets even worse than that. I'll get to the bus part a little bit later. Because that irritated me as well. So then, okay, like the mother explains, what happened. She got burnt in a fire. The daughter, I guess, tried to. This is the part that I kind of phased in and out. I'm gonna assume that the daughter who's dead has the power of sight. She can see when people are going to die. And so she tried to prevent this fire from happening at the factory. And I'm gonna assume that because it does not explain how, if this girl does not have the sight, how is it that like once she died and she put her eyes in Sydney's head, all of a sudden she can see dead people. So I'm gonna assume she has the sight of death. And so she could not prevent the fire that killed some people. It drove her mad and she hung herself. Then Sydney sees the shadow figure going towards the mom, meaning she's about to die. And so the specialist got her to the hospital, but she dies anyway. While all this is going on, the dead person decided to show Sydney how she died. Sydney saved her in some type of hallucination thing, but they still can't figure out what's going on and what the dead lady wants her to see. Because apparently it's something, because they deduce somehow it's something really special or something really tragic that's going to happen that the dead lady wants to prevent. Now, all throughout the movie, Sydney's been seeing these visions of people burning, like a little white girl and stuff like that, right? So then, as they're going back over the border, back to America and stuff, they get out because apparently there was a high-speed chase. It stalled traffic, and they're gonna be waiting there for a while. So they walk around, and then Sydney sees the little white girl in the RV, and she starts to see tons of shadow figures just going in and out of traffic in the cars and stuff. She now realizes her vision is about to happen and everything of this fiery death with all these people. There must gonna be an explosion, and she sees a gas tanker. And she realizes something's gonna cause it to explode and kill all these people. So her and the specialist are, for some reason, instead of going car by car, they are now going to the bus and trying to get all the people out. And they're all like, is this like a terrorist attack? And it's like, yes, there's a bomb on the bus. So everybody's freaking out and leaving. Now here is the odd thing. Just about every person you see heading from Mexico going back to America happens to be white. People on the bus are white. There's somebody to make a song out of that. And I'm just kind of like, okay, yeah, there are Americans that come from Mexico and go back over the border to America. A lot of them go on vacations, like the little girl in the RV. There's a dude on the motorcycle, and there are tons of other cars. When everybody panics and gets off the bus, all of a sudden, everybody in their cars get out as well. But nobody's warned them of anything. So why did they all flee their cars? Now, when you see them flee, like I said, it's mostly white people. Now, I know white folks go over to Mexico for a vacation, but not this many, man. You would think to see more Hispanic people, in their cars and fleeing this and that. If they are Mexican, they must be the most light-skinned Mexicans I've ever seen. So I'm just kind of like, okay. You got Jessica Alba playing a white woman. I guess to make it up to her, the person who gave her her eyes is Mexican. Then they travel 15 hours to Mexico. Then all the people coming from Mexico to America are white. Why not just make Jessica Alba Mexican and make this like, a predominantly Mexican horror movie? Because it kind of is, even though it's tons of white folks in it. Because the person who's seeing death and all this happens to be a Mexican person. And so this is where it differs from, like, the original. In the original, all these people, from what I saw from the side by side, died in a fiery death. But here, she's able to prevent it. And I like that a little bit better than the original because I don't want to see all those people die. So it's cool that, okay, she has this sight. She can prevent people from dying. So she's trying to prevent it. It's kind of like Final Destination in a way. And so when the explosion happens, because she's somehow, her and the man is able to outrun an explosion. Her eyes get glass in it and she's re-blind again, just like in the original. And it's just kind of like it just don't work in this movie. Like I said before, what translates over in another country doesn't always translate well in another. That's why things have to get changed and altered. Like when American movies and TV shows go to other countries, they edit it so it can so they can understand it better in other countries, not just with the dialogue, but with certain scenes and everything. Some things they take out. And it's just this movie just it does not translate very well and everything. There's a lot of things that happen and you just wonder for the longest time, why is this happening? And then you find out towards the very end. This isn't like The Ring. In The Ring, you had the people investigating, trying to figure stuff out, going from one destination to another, finding clues while all this bad stuff is happening. And here, all this bad stuff is happening. She's freaking out. But she's not really trying to figure out why this is happening until the very end. And then all of a sudden, the answers just fly to her and everything. It was a nice attempt, but they should have just either not made this movie or completely changed it. I would have rather this be a movie where a woman's been blind, because she's been blind ever since she was 5, because her sister, some fireworks and got in her eyes, that, you know what I'm saying? So I would have liked it better if it was a movie where you have a blind person who's been blind pretty much all their life. Then all of a sudden they can see and everything is just difficult. Nothing looks the way they think it does. People don't look the way they think it do. Vision's a little blurry. Lights are too bright. See the difficulties and the struggle with that and take out the paranormal. I would have preferred a movie like that, you know what I'm saying? A really good tug at your heartstrings drama. And then if they were gonna do the supernatural horror thing, then do it to where all this freaky stuff is happening. You're seeing dead people, then you're all like, wait, I can prevent people's death. Then it's like a Final Destination thing where you're trying to prevent people's death, but sometimes you're a little too late and can't, all while you're trying to figure out why this is happening to you. You know what I'm saying? So if they would have had more of that in this movie where she's literally trying to prevent people dying from throughout the entire movie, maybe it would be a little bit better. Because I mean, Final Destination was really good. It's just here, not really. And also, because Jessica Alba is so gorgeous, I wish they would have toned her look down a little bit to give her more of a frumpy kind of look. Because her hair looks amazing in every scene, no matter what's happening. No matter if she's running, there's an explosion, her hair is always on point. And I hate when Hollywood does that. It's like Hollywood doesn't want these celebrities to look their worst. You know what I'm saying? But looking their worst will help sell the movie. So you can watch it on Tubi. It'll be there for about 6 or 5 more days. they really should have took their time with this movie and hammer out the good parts really well to see how they were gonna make this movie flow, you know? That wasn't that spooky. Alright, well, I shall talk to y'all later. Bye.